So now we're going to look at some practice areas of interest. Mining existing assets is essentially the practice area that was the basis for all of their rehabilitation of what was done on the previous projects, particularly that leading project. And based on the informal evaluations of the architecture and so on, that was the candidate for becoming an entire product line. And like most organizations that we work with, they really didn't use any of the domain analysis methods that we saw in the understanding relevant domains practice area. Instead, they relied on creating a simple categorization of features in terms of this set of features is going to cross the entire range of products we have in mind. These are common to all of the products, and here are the variants, here are the features that are going after specific kinds of engines. But in addition to doing that for the automotive domain, they also interviewed domain experts and developers and business people and so on from across the other parts of the organization, the industrial and power generation units as well. So already Temple is looking to the future. He's establishing the product line in one business unit. He has plans to take it to the entire organization. So let's start talking to the people in the other parts of the organization and make sure that we don't lock out them when we come up with the architecture and components. So again, bringing in stakeholders who are going to be part of this product line effort, not just now, but in the future. So your product line manager or product line champion has to be aware of these kinds of things. That's why I say you're in it for the long haul, and the person in charge has to be proactive about looking ahead for the greater benefit of the organization, coming up with a credible business case, and making sure that the parts of the organization, particularly the influential business unit managers that are going to be part of this product line, understand their roles and understand the benefits that a product line can bring, and understand who's in charge and who's controlling the funding and how they are going to be expected to play in this new organizational structure. So features were labeled in Cummins' terms unique, or what we would call product specific, and common, and they also prioritized which features to work on and which subsets of features to bundle as core assets by the delivery schedules established for the customer projects that were going to be the first pilot project and then the subsequent product deliveries as the proof of concept of this architecture-centric approach. There's a process in automotive engineering called end-of-line programming, where the systems that you would deliver to a customer are tailored for that customer's application. In Cummins' case, the customer is the internal engine groups. But when you ship or hand off an engine management system to the group that has to install this on a particular engine, they have about 300 different parameters that they can tweak for the particular highway truck application or marine diesel or whatever, in a process that is known in the industry as end-of-line programming. But behind those 300 or so parameters that a customer will see, there are about 2,600 or anywhere up to 3,000 internal parameters in the software. And the variation mechanism that was used to handle all of these, out of all the ones that we saw in the architecture and the component development modules, of all those variation mechanisms, the one used here was, take a wild guess. This is programmed in C. If-def.
If-def.
Yeah. And so they relied very heavily on their own in-house tool set and their own internal generative capability to manage all of these if-defs. In fact, like a lot of automotive companies, they relied very heavily on growing their own in-house set of tools to manage the software engineering aspects of it. It's a sort of a classic in engineering organizations that are coming to grips with software engineering as a discipline, that they tend to want to roll their own tools first before looking outside. So all of Cummins' tool set at the time, and even today, is still largely homegrown. They put a lot of effort and time into making a really good tool set. And they actually are finding that that effort is paying off handsomely, and they are still relying on what they were able to produce for this product line. The Cummins organizational structure, let me just move to here. At the time of the case study, you had the automotive, power generation, and industrial business units. And the group that creates the architecture and the components is drawn from across these three different groups. So this is like the structure that we saw in the organizational structure model, where you have a virtual organization created from different independent parts of the organization. And one of the risks with that is that if your product line architect comes from a particular business unit, then the core asset base could be biased in terms of that particular business unit. For Cummins, this was not the case because, well, first of all, of the, I guess it's the Midwestern cooperative spirit that existed within the Cummins organization, because when Linda and Paul went out to talk to the Cummins people as part of the case study, they found that there was this really cohesive, cooperative organization that you typically don't see in East or West Coast organizations where business units are essentially competing against each other. So this altruistic cooperative spirit guaranteed that everybody played fair in the creation of the architecture and components. But just in case, that was reinforced by the funding policy. Every business unit is taxed a proportion of its sales to pay for the core assets, whether or not they use them. So that, plus the cooperative spirit, guarantees that the assets are funded and created and actually used. So this was an outstanding example of how an organization can pull a product line team from different, formerly independent parts of the organization to come together under the leadership of a champion with a vision for the future improvement of the business of the organization.
He also had to act as a change agent in all this.
Yes, he was the change agent, yeah. So the upper-level management in Cummins placed a lot of trust in this guy coming in from the outside to follow through on this vision of changing the organization around to this idea of becoming an architecture-centric organization. The other thing that you will find if you are ramping up a product line effort in an organization is that you will have to spend lots and lots of face time with the people who are going to be affected by this. And this is certainly true in the case of Cummins, where they found that they had to have weekly meetings with all of the principals involved, and they had to have, well, they were able to get personal commitments from the managers. And in fact, a couple of our customers have adopted this approach, that they make commitments to other parts of the organization to deliver core assets on time, to go along with the overall product line structure for the greater good of the organization. And these things are in their goals and objectives, and they will actually be evaluated against meeting these performance goals. So it's all part of reinforcing this notion that we are changing not because it's something that's cool technically to do, but we are changing because this is a fundamental part of the way we do business, or it's to become a fundamental part of the way we do business. Architecture evaluation, as I said, was nothing like an ATAM-like evaluation. Mostly a lot of frequent reviews, lots of discussions with the product architects and what became the product line architect and the core asset development team. Unit testing done at the core asset level, integration testing, and final product level testing done within the different product development groups. And Cummins already had its own standard risk management approach in place already that they simply continue to use in the product line effort.